got a phone call, and it was the police. Do you own such and such Anthony Street? And I was like, yeah, this is one of the first ones I bought. It's been a serious incident that's happened in there. I think someone was stabbed is what was told. I had a break-in in the other one. And I was like, all of this was just happening at once. And I was like, I just need to sell these. So I put them in a London auction, Barnard Marcus, sold them, pretty much made my money back. Didn't make any profit, they washed the face, whatever I put in, I pretty much got back.
Welcome to another episode of the I Love Monday podcast. Today we have multi-business owner Terry Blackburn. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate your time.
I wanted to speak to Terry because he's a multi-business owner who has taken a hands-off role. You're also a podcast host.
Yeah.
Also written a couple books.
Yeah.
So we want to see where he finds time, the energy and the motivation.
Yeah, big question. So how I find the time, first of all, I'm big on structure, and I use a Google Calendar, I use to-do lists, and I prioritize every day. I mean, the most common question I get asked is probably, how do I do everything that I do all at once? And it comes down to structure, effectively. I'm a big believer in health, as in keeping your health right. So train most days, eating well, plenty water, plenty coffee, because if your body's right, your mind is right, and then I can do all of these things all at once. Whereas if I look at a period, if I haven't trained for, let's say, 3-4 days, haven't exercised, I feel like crap, and then I'm not a good leader, I'm not a good boss, I'm not a good partner, I'm not a good dad, I'm not good at any of the things that I do. So that definitely comes into play. How do you find the time? You train early or late, and that gives you more energy to achieve more during the day. To-do list, dead simple concept, but prioritizing most profitable, working on it solely until it's done. Next task, and do it like that. Put your phone away from you is a good tip as well, because everyone's addicted to the ping, 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 aren't they? So when I'm doing a task, I try my best. It doesn't happen always, obviously, but I try my best to be tunnel vision, get that task done in its entirety before you go to the next one.
How do you do your to-do list? Is it pen and paper, or do you use
On notes, just on my phone. Yeah, just on my phone. I used to be more old school doing it on paper, but what you do is you'll lose the notebook, or you'll go out and forget the notebook, or you'll go on a trip away and you forget the notebook, and then you're not as productive. So, just on my notes on my iPhone.
How was a young Terry growing up in Newcastle?
How was it? Challenging. My upbringing wasn't the best. We didn't have no money. Grew up in a tall block of flats. We didn't have anything growing up. And at the time, you don't realise that. When you're in it, you don't, and unless you're comparing yourself against other kids, which I start to as you get older. They've got nicer shoes, nicer coats, go on nicer holidays and stuff like that. But we didn't have anything growing up. And then my mum set up a business when I was around about 10, 11, I think, somewhere in that region. And she did quite well. And then she lost it all. So I experienced having nothing, and then having something, and then having nothing again. And I think that definitely moulded me, or moulded part of the way I think and the way I am, because I've still got it in us now. That's why I buy property, which is my safeguard from the businesses. Because the businesses, something happens at the businesses, I've got the fallback of property. Yeah. I'm not a property, full-time in property, like all these people say. I don't think I'd ever be full-time in property. Business is better in terms of income and ROI. But to answer your question, yeah, it was challenging, but I still love Newcastle, for sure.
Were you one of them kids who would be in school selling chocolate bars and?
I mean, I was the chav of the school, right? So the chav was the naughty kid. I was definitely that, unfortunately. I upset a lot of people. I was just a bit of a nightmare as a kid. The naughty kid, getting suspended constantly, nearly got expelled. I was regularly selling something, doing something I shouldn't. I was a nightmare. I really was.
When did that change?
Age 18/19, when I got into sales. So it might turn, people talk about turning points and talk about moments in someone's life that determined or changed your direction. I definitely had one where I'd been out drinking, taking drugs, getting up to no good, Thursday till Sunday, no sleep, just being an absolute idiot. Thursday till Sunday, and I remember it was a Sunday night and I was 19 at this point, and I looked in the mirror and I looked all sucked in, I looked ill. It's because I've been out taking drugs and being an idiot, And it was that point when I said, like, this is not for me. This, like, what am I doing? Like, the people I was hanging around with weren't the nicest people. I was getting up to no good, and I was like, I need to stop this now. I got made redundant about 2 weeks after that, after making a conscious decision to move away from those friends. Lost my job, and I was a builder at this point. I was like, oh my God, what's happened? And then I got a job in sales. First week, I just loved it, did really well. And it was that point I knew, right, well, this is the change. This is when I'm going to start to make it. And yeah, so that's when it all changed.
And then when did you buy your first property?
21, 22.
So rumour has it that you bought a property for cash for under 20,000.
I bought 3 for under 20,000 all cash. That was my first 3 purchases, was 14,500, 16,500, and I think it was 14,500, 16, and 17,500.
What year was this?
So that was, so I'm 34 now, so 12, 13 years ago.
Okay, so you're looking at 2008, 2009.
Somewhere around that region, yeah. And there were 2 of them were in the same place, which was Easington Colliery, which is, I mean, you can still pick up properties for 20, 30k around there. They haven't even went up that much. But you can imagine the type of area and the tenant profile of what I was buying. But I'd never done any education. I'd never read any books on property. I just thought, because I was making 80, 90 grand a year when I was 19. And that's a lot of money. It's still a lot of money now. But I was making good money back then. I started to make 6 figures when I was like 20. And it's continued up from there. But because I was making good money, there's only so much you can do that with. And I thought, I should really be doing something with this money. And then I just went, like a lot of people do, I went to look at the lowest value properties I could find, because I thought, oh, well, it just costs us less. I wasn't looking at yield or any of that. It was just the cheapest ones I could find. And my thought process was get people who are on the dole, DSS tenants, paying because it used to get paid directly to you. It doesn't happen like that anymore. The government or the councils used to pay us directly.
Yeah.
So I was getting 385 a property. So I was over $1,000 on 3 of them, and I'd only put in 50 odd K, and I was like,
385 per week.
385 per month per property. So I know, seems crazy that, doesn't it? But yeah, again, I was uneducated. I just done what I thought was right at the time, and it all went tits up not long after that, and I sold them all.
What happened? I was reading about one of them.
Mm-hmm. So, well, the funny story about the horse. So I bought the first one, an Easington Colliery. That was the cheapest one. That was the 14 grand one. Done it up, put a tenant in, started to get my rent. Thought, this is great. Bought another one in the same street. Exactly the same situation. Little refurb, put the tenants in, get me 385. I was like, this is amazing. I thought I'd like cracked something. I'm a property guy now. Then I went to auction to buy another one in the same area, and I got outbid. And then there was one in the catalogue, just an external picture. That's only a bit of a giveaway, isn't it? No internal pictures, it's bad inside. So anyway, I ended up buying that one blind, never seen it, never been there. So I got the keys 28 days later or whatever, went round, and it was like a U shape, this street. Drove down this side of the street and wrapped it round, and every single street on this U was boarded up apart from the one that I bought. So got round and I thought, oh my God, what have I done? I got a sinking feeling in my stomach. What have I done? There was gypsies in the street. There was burnt out cars in the street. Like, you've never seen anything like it. It was horrific. Walked in, there was animal shit or something. Oh, sorry, can I swear on this book?
Yeah,
I know I swear a lot. I'm a Geordie, see. But it was just mounds of all sorts on the floor. The smell was horrific. And I walked through like the lounge into like the dining area, kitchen, and there was patio doors. And there was, honestly, hand on heart, there was a horse tied to the fence in the back garden. And it wasn't a back garden where you could get, like, I don't know how the horse would go in there, because you couldn't walk around the side of the house. It was terraced.
So it had to be someone let it in.
I don't know. And I seen this horse, I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, what have I done? And then not long after that, well, I mean, just trying to get that refurb done, I had 3 builders refused to go in there. Like, labourers refused to even empty it. It was that bad.
How did you take the horse out?
Yes, so I get that. So basically, loads of builders refused to do it. When I ended up going back there, about a month later, the horse was gone.
Okay.
I hope nothing bad happened to the horse. But I'm assuming it was something to do with the gypsies that were in the street. I'm assuming,
Someone
but
just broke in and...
I have no clue, unless they got it from the fence. I do seem to remember the fence was all smashed in a little bit, but I honestly can't remember. It was just a bit of a whirlwind, that experience. And it didn't put us off properly, weirdly. I just had in my head, well, a little bit after that, sorry, I always remember I was on the treadmill, sorry, I was on the cross trainer in the gym, and I got a phone call, and it was the police. Do you own such and such Anthony Street? And I was like, yeah, this is one of the first ones I bought. It's been a serious incident that's happened in there. You know, I think someone was stabbed, is what was told. I had a break-in in the other one, and I was like, all of this was just happening at once, and I was like, I just need to sell these. So I put them in a London auction, Barnard Marcus, sold them, pretty much made my money back. Didn't make any profit. I just washed the face, you know, whatever I put in, I pretty much got back. And then I started to buy properties for around about 100k. So 3-bed semis, 3-bed terraces, buy-to-lets. And yeah, but I still never done any education at this point. I was just kind of doing what I thought was right.
The one of your houses was a crime scene as well, right?
Yeah, so that's the 3
police
Anthony
called you.
Street. Say again?
That's when the police. That's the one.
Yes, yeah. So it was cordoned off. Like I said, I think I got told from a neighbour, if I remember correctly, because I remember them telling us like asking us, what do you know about this tenant?
Yeah.
I still remember the name, but I'm not going to say the name on here. But I still remember them asking us, and I was like, why do you need to know this? Well, it's a crime scene. Like, how did you manage to get this person? Why did you have them in your property? And they were quizzing me, and I was at the gym, and I was like, what on earth? Like, this is just like crazy. I just need out of these properties.
Why didn't you get yourself educated after that, or was it more like it just wasn't a thing?
Yeah, it wasn't like nowadays. You just have to put on YouTube, or you have to put on any social media platform, and some sort of education in any industry is pretty much there. It's really accessible. Back then, I don't even know if maybe Facebook was around. I can't even remember. I think Facebook was probably around, but
I don't think there was no YouTube or anything.
There was no YouTube. I certainly can never remember watching anything or even seeing anybody advertising like if I seen an advert for a property seminar or some education, I would have done it because I was really interested in property, and I don't know where that came from. Maybe it's like Homes Under the Hammer or something. I don't know. I was interested, but there was no education available anyway. Probably, it's hard to remember back, but maybe it's a couple of years after that, my first sort of dealing with any property education was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I read that, and that kind of got us. But before Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was listening to Brian Tracy, who's really old school, self-development, nothing to do with property, mainly sales, goal setting, mindsets kind of coaching. And I got his CD, and when I was on my sales calls, I used to listen to it in the car, and that was my first dealing with self-development. Then Rich Dad Poor Dad came after that.
And then when did you start your first business?
Well, I was self-employed from 19. So when I went into sales, it was self-employed, yeah. So it was commission only. You know, it's a hard gig that. If anyone's listening, done self-employed sales, it's a hard gig. Knocking on doors, walking into businesses, trying to sell life insurance. There's nothing even to sell. I was selling what happens if you die. So I was self-employed then, kind of, although it wasn't my own limited company, I was still self-employed sole trader. And that I set up my first limited company aged 24, which was Bespoke Financial, which was the big business I built, which I exited last year. So yeah.
Why did you decide to say, okay, I want to start my own big business?
To start?
Business,
Yeah. Because I was selling life insurance for 2 American companies first, the business that I set up was selling life insurance. So because I worked for a couple of companies for 4 or 5 years, making them a lot of money, and I was being paid well, don't get us wrong, but I felt like I always had ideas and I had concept and ways of doing things, and I was being told that you can't do that. And I was saying, why didn't we do this to grow the business this way? Well, you can't do that. And I kept being held back. And if you set up your own business in financial services, selling life insurance and arranging mortgages for clients, you do have more scope to do what you want, but you also have access to more products. So when I was selling life insurance for the 2 American companies, we had 4 or 5 products. When I went to set up myself, all of a sudden had 60, 70. So it was better for clients, or could get paid better, and I had more more options, less restrictions. So it was kind of it was just a natural progression to do that. A little bit out of frustration of being held back, and I was always confident that I could do it. And obviously the money was better.
What kind of challenges did you face starting your first business?
Loads, to be honest. I made some pretty bad mistakes, as you do, because even though I was kind of running my own business, self-employed, when I went to set up my actual own company, I was 24, looked pretty young. I think a lot of people don't take it that serious. I think it's getting that's getting better now because there's more and more young entrepreneurs and more young business owners. But you know, you're talking 10 years ago. So I'm 34 now. A lot of people, certainly in financial services, looked down on you if you were younger. And I was then sitting with 50, 55, 60-year-old couples trying to talk to them about debt and mortgages and life insurance and dying and writing a will. And they were like, well, who are you? You're too young. Like, how can you tell me? Like, there was definitely a little bit of that. So a mistake that I made was I tried to be someone who I wasn't. So I tried to act more, or tried to act in a more corporate way. And I tried to kind of be someone that I wasn't. And the reason for that was because I wanted people to think I was older. So I went through a stage of not telling people it was my business because I didn't want them to think I was just saying I'm one of the senior advisors. And that actually worked a little bit. But then when I was trying to recruit staff members, I was trying to pretend I was someone that I wasn't. And that worked for a little bit. And then someone said to us, I can't remember who it was or where I got it from. Someone just said, or maybe he's read it, was like, just be who you are. And if people don't want to work for you because you are young and you are who you are, then they're not right anyway. And I always remember that, and I thought, right, I'm just going to be me. So I stopped wearing a full three-piece suit like I used to for work, and I just wore a shirt, sometimes a blazer, sometimes just a shirt. And I just be me, and I swear, and I be daft, and I have a laugh at work, and I have a carry on and all that. And I recruited an amazing team as soon as I started to do that because I was attracting the right type of people who wanted to work for me because it was me. And then the business literally went like that. So that was a definite mistake that I made.
But it makes a difference because you're building your own culture around you and your values.
Definitely.
Whereas if you're pretending to be someone, then you're building a culture about something you don't even believe in.
Exactly. And people do see through it. They might be fooled by it for a little while, but eventually they'll see through it because you can only act for so long. And people aren't daft. They can see through it, for sure. So that was it. That was a mistake. I did some crazy things like, I almost was recruiting on looks at one point. So I was recruiting really good-looking females into my business just because they were good-looking, not because of the attributes or the skill set or their ability to sell or to do any of this. And that was a mistake. Because I was making more money than I knew what to do with it at the time. Like I was making good money for a young guy, and I never had that much money. And it kind of messes with you a little bit because you go through a bit of you think you're something that you're not, and you think you're invincible a little bit. And because I was doing so well, I was getting away with making mistakes. One thing I've definitely learned in my time in business is you have to pay well for good people. At the start, a bit like property. The start, you buy the cheapest properties that you can buy. When you're building a business and you're recruiting people, you try and pay people as low as possible, or put an advert on for a low salary to try and get somebody good. If you want the best people, you've got to pay decent money for the best people. Managing people, you've got to manage people differently. You've got to work out what makes them tick, and because some people are certainly salespeople. When I'm recruiting salespeople, some salespeople are solely driven by money. Some people aren't driven by money at all, and they're driven by recognition. And you need to manage those people differently. Some people that just literally want a paycheck, and that's absolutely fine. They just want to get by. So you can't talk about goals and money and aspirations and promotion to the people who just want to get by. To them, you talk about security, you talk about paying the bills. You know what I mean? And I only learned that over time, and I think a lot of people get that wrong because I've literally had hundreds of people working for us. The main business had 120 sales staff. When I exited, so you come across a lot of characters in a recruitment drive like that, and I don't think you can skip them reps in business. You've got to almost go through those motions to learn how to manage different types of people.
You've got to make your mistakes, essentially, isn't it?
I think so. I certainly think it's the best. It's the best way to learn, is from mistakes. It's also the most costly and the most time consuming, but certainly for me, it's the best.
You learnt your management. You said over time. How were you managing the different people? So obviously sales, you can talk about goals to them because a lot of them are driven by money or recognition. But then you had, I'm guessing, admin staff who just wanted security, which is obviously fine, and you need
Yeah,
them. You need
definitely,
them in the business.
definitely.
How are you managing all of them differently?
So it's quite hard to generalize because, you know, some admin are still quite ambitious and they want to sometimes grow in their career and become the head admin or the office manager. So you look at the person individually, and some people are literally just motivated by a good place to work. So we dropped a dress code for our admin staff because some of them just didn't want to put shirts on or business attire. They wanted to come in hoodies. In you know, as long as they don't look scruffy, that was fine with me. Building a good working environment, taking them out on team building events, treating them well, paying them on time. Things like we used to do fish and chip Fridays, so I used to buy them all dinner on a Friday, and that's such a small gesture to maybe people like us, but to them it meant a lot, and I could see it when I used to say, right, well, let's say if I had a record-breaking month, I used to say, right, well, if we hit this target as a team, so that's the sales staff and the admin staff that process the sales, as a team, we will all go out, I'll take you bowling, or we'll go for a few drinks after work, or we'll go for a meal. Christmas time, we used to have a big awards dinner, like a gala event that I used to host, black tie, everyone used to get dressed up. And I used to give my sales staff awards, but I used to give the admin awards as well, because the sales staff couldn't do what they do without the admin, and the admin wouldn't have a job without the salespeople. So, but it wasn't like the salespeople are better than the admin people. It was, we are a team. And I used to reward them with lunches, dinners, nights out, and then give, obviously, the better ones, the higher performing ones, awards at the Christmas do. And I think that definitely helped. And you've just got to find out what makes them tick ultimately. And you do that by having one-on-ones with them, finding out a little bit about them outside of work, what they liked, what they're up to, do they have a family and whatever. And you build your management around that. Some people hate being man-managed. They hate it. Some people don't mind it. Some people would be mortified. They would hate it if I disciplined them or told them off in front of others. Some people don't mind it. So there's all of these. That's why I think business is a better ROI than property, but it's 10 times, if not more, harder, because you have to deal with things like this, don't you?
And you don't know what's coming the next day.
Because they could have stuff in the personal life, and you could come in and manage them in the way that you have been managing them previously, which has worked, and then they take it the wrong way because they're having difficulty at home. There's so many moving parts and variables to business, but that's why it pays better.
What did you discuss on the one-on-ones that would make you figure out, okay, this is what makes them tick?
So what I used to do with all, and I do this to this day in all my different companies that I'm involved in, we have set KPIs. So when somebody joins the business, obviously we generally do 2 interviews, and then I make them sign a position agreement. This is before they start working for us. And in that position agreement, we'll have KPIs. So key performance indicators, and that if it's an administrator, you need to process X amount of sales or cases within a set week, or you need to respond within 48 hours. You need to, whatever their KPIs. If it's sales, they do this many sales or that many sales, or they've got to have this quality or that quality. So in the one-on-ones, we always cover the KPIs first. How are you, and all of the general stuff. Anything that you're particularly enjoying about the business at the moment. And I used to always ask, is there anything in particular that you think we could do as a business which either makes us more efficient or brings in more business? More efficient is generally targeted at the administrators, but the salespeople sometimes brought efficiency advice in, and the other way around. So always covered that. And then we used to set little mini goals. It used to be 3 business goals, 3 personal goals. And you kind of find out, without asking them, you find out what makes them tick by what goals they say. And if they say, well, I want to be promoted, or I'd like to buy my own house. If it's buy my own house, which is a lot of people's goal, you say, okay, so where are you looking? In this area. How much is that going to cost? Around about this much. So are you in a position, are you saving at the moment? So just to give them advice like that. So have you got credit cards? Is your credit rating up to date? Have you got, do you separate your income every time it comes in? So I used to give them advice like that, just from a friendship, I suppose, and a boss kind of relationship. But then it kind of comes out when you ask those questions, 3 personal goals, 3 business goals, they'll show the cards a little bit. Then you can tailor what what they want ultimately. And in terms, if you summarize managing someone effectively, you're getting them what they want, aren't you?
It's basically like sales.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And if they can achieve what they want from a personal point of view and a career point of view, and sometimes people don't really have career goals. They just want, like the people who just want to tick along, but they might have really strong personal goals. If you can help them in some way achieve some or all of those goals, personal and career, they're going to stay with you. They're going to love working for you. They're going to look up to you, respect you. So a lot of, if you can help fulfill some of those somehow, it's better for staff retention. It's better, the more fulfilled and happy, people who are happy and enjoy coming to work stay longer and they work harder anyway.
Yeah.
And a Richard Branson phrase, which I love, and it always stuck with us, was train your staff so they're good enough to leave, but treat them well enough so that they never will. And that always stuck with us, and it was like, that's why sometimes we're finished early on a Friday. We've had a long week. I finish at 2:00 today instead of 5. Everyone go home and enjoy themselves. That honestly, that gives them so much of a good feeling. I was like a superhero. I was like the best, and this is a joke in the office, they always used to say, or a lot of them used to say I was the best boss ever. And we used to wind them up about it. The boys' cups with the best boss ever and all this stuff. It's cheesy, but that was intentional. I created that intentionally.
I've noticed as well, so when every Friday we buy takeaways or whatever it is for the team, and we noticed not only obviously they look forward to it, but they work harder to finish everything they can by that time.
Definitely.
Then they'll eat, and then the rest of the time they'll either, if they've got nothing to do, they'll go home, or they'll just take it a bit easy. Because some of them just like staying at work for the social aspect of it as well.
Definitely.
But I have noticed as a business owner, you're not just a business owner. You have to be a friend, advisor,
counselor,
therapist, everything.
You literally do, yeah. You're right.
You're learning on the job. Because how do you be a counselor? You don't, but you're literally, you have to switch from boss mode to friend mode, like you said, and it's like, okay, they give me a problem, I need to figure out some kind of solution, whether it's a personal goal or wherever it is.
You're right, and that's a good point actually, because it's a hard balance, that the balance of friendship and kind of authority of being the boss is a hard one, because if you become too friendly, it's then harder to, if they've done something wrong, it's harder to say to them, well, this is what you've done wrong and this is what you need to do next time. And if you really need to discipline them, as in verbal warnings, written warnings and all of that, they don't take it the same. So that's been, and I've made that mistake. If you get too friendly with them, sometimes it clouds the line of friendship and the boss kind of thing. And that is a challenge, that one. And I'm still really good friends with a lot of, and some of my best friends actually, of people who've worked for us in the past and did until I exited. And I crossed the line of, I was too friendly with them, but they always still respected that if I told them something when we're in a work environment, that it was work. So yeah, that's definitely a hard one.
Have you had to fire someone that you were a bit friendly with?
Yeah.
How did you do
Definitely.
it? And how was it taken?
I fired my stepdad. Yeah, my stepdad, that was pretty challenging. Yeah, me little brother as well, that was pretty challenging. But at the end of the day, like, business is business, and I'm not ruthless, but what I have learned over the years is sometimes you've got to make the tough decisions. You're paid the most as the business owner generally. Not always, depends on who's running the business, but generally you're paid the most to make the tough decisions. And it is challenging, but you've got to, if you fire someone, you've got to have rationale as to why you do it. You can't just fire them because you don't like them or because you clash. You can manage somebody out if that's the case, but you've got to have rationale. And if there's reason behind it, you explain your reasoning, and it is what it is.
How did them conversations go with your stepdad and brother? Because that probably took you a long time just to gain the courage to do that.
No, I wouldn't say it took a long time. It was more, but it almost becomes a mutual decision. So certainly if you're looking at these two people in sales, so certainly if you're looking at sales, if someone isn't performing as a sales rep, a sales consultant, whatever you call them, if they're not hitting their targets for a couple of months in a row, it's likely that it's creeped into their head that this isn't for them either. So it's not like it's a shock to them. Well, certainly if you're talking about firing salespeople.
Yeah.
Because they know that they're not performing, they haven't been performing for a certain amount of time. So you just highlight that to them in the one-on-ones. Why do you think this is happening? You know, do you think this is for you? And you kind of come to that almost a mutual agreement. It wasn't like, you're fired like Alan Sugar. It was like, it came to a mutual agreement because I'm helping them, and then they're not getting anywhere, they're not getting results, they're getting frustrated, I'm getting frustrated. So then it comes, it's a little bit of a softer approach, and that's the way, to be fair, that's the way I got rid of, if that's the right phrase, a lot of the people that I did have to get rid of. Say again?
Sounds like you're killing them off.
Maybe.
How are your relationships now with your
Oh, really good, yeah, really
so it
good.
Affect
yeah, it didn't affect. I mean, well, it was my little brother. I did a little bit at the time, but then he actually came back to work for the business about 2 years later, and I wasn't open to it at the start, and then he made it work. So I think he was too young at the start.
What other businesses do you have? You have 11, right?
Yeah, 11 limited companies, yeah. So there's a load of buy-to-lets, there's HMOs, there's Airbnbs, hotels, bar, restaurant, coffee shop, glamping site, letting agency we just launched this month actually, construction business. The podcast and the books aren't a limited company. I've got various JVs. Feel like I'm missing something. It's hard to remember, to be quite honest. The Life Insurance and Mortgage Brokers, I still own the limited company, but we're doing a quirky sale, but I still own that company. That's the other one.
So did you grow them organically, like kind of a integration into your existing businesses? Like, for example, you've got the buy-to-lets and the hotels, and then it's like, okay, let's open a construction arm.
Yeah, kind of. And like all the decisions I make across all the businesses are always based on numbers and logic, not emotion. So things like the construction business, I'm heavily refurbing stuff, or I haven't stopped refurbing something for probably 4 or 5 years. I'm always refurbing something, it feels like. So it made sense to get lads involved to do that, and then we can do work for other landlords and other investors. We're actually launching an eco business at the moment. We'll do all the qualifications now, which is basically, without boring any of the listeners, there's a lot of government funding to improve the energy efficiency of homes. So you can get free solar panels, new heating system, new radiators and all of that. So we went through the training, we've got the certification now, so we're accredited through Trustmark, which means we can get government funding to improve people's homes for free. So the owners of the houses pay nothing, we get paid to do the work. So that it made sense to do that business because it didn't organically go to that, but it made sense to do it because everyone's, EPCs are on a lot of people's minds, energy bills are on a lot of people's minds, and it's linked to what I already do anyway. I already had the construction lads, I've already got contacts with all the landlords and trades, so that just kind of made sense. And then I look at an opportunity with numbers and logic, and if the numbers stack and I want to do it, it's logical, then I'll do it. The letting agency came from managing my own for a couple of years, not me, but the team managed mine, to then thinking, right, well, why don't we just manage other people's? And that only launched 11th of August this month, and there's 96 properties on the books already, including mine. Mine, 40 of them are mine, but still. So it's kind of, a lot of it's linked to property in some way or another.
Yeah, because you've not gone like complete left and decided to do building softwares
not at all.
But it's all kind of linked, which kind of helps anyway.
Yeah, definitely, because you can, the kind of, some businesses trickle into other businesses, don't they, and they help other ones. And it's all kind of blended together in a way. You know, how I have one office where all the staff are in, So yeah, that's kind of how I've done it.
How are you like scaling up, like all the different businesses?
Some of them this year is very much about not reinvesting. So I'm only going to buy a handful of properties this year. I've only bought 3 so far, but from 2022 to probably 2019, maybe even 2018, I've been buying double figures a year. So buying more than 10 a year every year. This year was a year, it was very much looking at it for me was like, right, let's actually consolidate a little bit, selling off a few, just because of rates, don't stack no more. Consolidate, make everything as profitable as possible. And that's probably the first time I've actually like looked sideways and backwards instead of always looking forward for a good, you're probably talking 5+ years. All I've done is reinvest money, buy more properties, reinvest into the business, recruit more people, build, scale. That's all I've done for years. And it was a little bit challenging to actually do this exercise and actually, right, well, hold on. Let's look sideways a little bit. What have we got going on? Can we make this more profitable? And look at this trail of destruction that I've left behind us, buying all these properties in hotels and all of that. And let's actually just make it as profitable as possible. And then before we go again.
I think that's quite normal in business or even multiple businesses, because when you're growing, you're constantly adding, and then it's
in
like,
the growth phase, aren't you?
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, let's slow down, streamline. You then notice your profit per team member has probably gone up. Your
Definitely.
General ROI is going up, and then it's like, okay, let's go again. And it's always like grow, streamline. I've noticed that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, don't get us wrong, we always, I've done monthly P&Ls for as long as I can remember. I've always had a good handle on the numbers across every business, but this was probably the first time I said, right, I'm not going to keep buying properties at the volume, at the rate I was buying them. So yeah, and then, we got rid of some stuff. I got rid of obviously the main business, and it was very much just like, right, well, let's, instead of just getting the new person to bring in more revenue or to do whatever, let's actually just pause a little bit. And maybe that's because we had another baby last year and he doesn't like sleeping. So I've been more tired than I have been in previous years. It was a bit of that. And I think I've changed a lot as a person. Since selling that business, it was like, I've definitely changed a lot. Yeah. So I think that was partly down to that as well.
Why did you decide to sell?
Timing was just right. It was a good offer and the timing was right. And I felt like I was at the right stage to leave that, because it was a life insurance and mortgage brokers. That's all I've done since I was 19. Not all I've done, but the bulk of what I've done has been that. That's how I made all my money. That's how I bought the properties. It was all the profits from these businesses. So 19 to 33, it's a decent chunk of my life. And I just thought, you know what, I think I'm ready to try something new. And I did wobble a bit, I must admit, because we just talked a bit off camera about Monday morning meetings. So I'd had a 10 o'clock Monday meeting, motivational Mondays we used to call it, for whatever that period is, 14, well, not from 19, I suppose from 24 to 33, so 9 years call it, religiously, every Monday, 10 o'clock, motivational meetings, I'm on the stage, giving it all this. And when I'm no longer involved in that business, 10 o'clock Monday came and I was like, what have I done? Have I made the right decision? Like, I've read books where people have said, when you sell a business, it messes with your head, and I thought, nah, not me. I've got loads of other businesses, it's not going to happen to me. But it did. It did, because part of my identity was that business. Part of my purpose was that business. Loads of my friends and family still work at that business. I'm no longer the person at the ring anymore. I'm no longer on the stage. I'm no longer the person that's giving out the awards and paying the wage and doing all that. And I was like, so you have to almost reinvent yourself a little bit, which I've went through now, thankfully. But there was probably a space of a couple of months where I was getting less sleep because of the baby. It was all at the same time. I bought a big house, and we had the baby, and I sold the business in the same month.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it was like, and this house that we bought needs a full refurb. Every room needs done. And I was like, and we just had a baby, and I no longer have my purpose. I just got hit from every angle all at once. And then when you're not getting any sleep, it was like, Yeah, I wobbled. I didn't have any mental health issues at all. I've never had any, thankfully. But yeah, I was just like, wow, like my life is like completely different to what it used to be.
So you have to
So
literally rewire yourself.
yeah,
And
literally.
then I think it's just a reset where you just got pen, paper, coffee, right? Whatever down comes to your head, and then restructure your life, because your life has essentially changed because you don't have that business anymore.
Definitely, and that was like what I'm most known for in certainly the Northeast is for building bespoke financial, because it was my baby, and we won something like 15 national awards. I've won awards in Iceland, Poland, Berlin, all over the world. I've won them everywhere because we used to get taken on these big conventions, and we were the number one on the stage getting these huge awards. You know, beating companies that have been around 25, 30 years. We were the company and I was the man. And all of a sudden that's not there anymore. It was, honestly, it was a really strange feeling. But I still think it was the right thing to do. And I know that I couldn't open the doors that I'm opening now and getting into the things that I'm getting into now if I still had that business. I couldn't have, and you have to shut one door almost to open another. And certainly from a time perspective, from an energy perspective, it drained a lot. And you know, I know I'm going to get into bigger things, and I know I'm going to do something bigger than that ever was. But I had to shut the door in order for that to happen.
How's your day-to-day looking now? So what do you do at 10 o'clock on a Monday?
10 o'clock on Mondays, normally having meetings with all my senior staff and the other businesses. So we'll plan for the week ahead on a Monday. So Monday consists of, I speak to all my senior staff, so my PA, my ops manager, in-house accountant, guest services. I speak to the main people who I need to speak to, where we'll plan stuff for the week. Marketing guy who I've just took on. So we'll plan the content, we'll plan everything for the week ahead. A little bit about what happened last week. Did we do everything we achieved? Is there anything that's going to spill over into this week? But it's mainly a WIP meeting, work in progress, WIP, what's the plan for the week? Set some KPIs. And it's like a planning day. I look at Mondays now. It's not as enjoyable as it used to be, me giving it all that, doing the motivation stuff. But yeah, that's what Mondays consist of now.
It's like you've always got a bird's eye view, but you're less in the businesses, and now to level up, you need to take that position where you're planning and you're strategizing.
Definitely, and you know, I've still got 40 odd staff now, and you know, you can't manage for. I mean, at one point I had over 150 because I had, before I sold everything, I had 120. There was loads of stuff going on. It's impossible to manage that many people yourself directly. But what you can do is you can manage your key team members who then manage people further down.
Yeah.
So at the hotel, bar and restaurant, I only manage one person. She then manages the rest. Because you can't manage that many people. Do you know what I mean? So that's definitely from looking from a bird's eye. And that's one of the hardest things, I think, as well as a business owner. Certainly if you're relatively new to business or you've only been doing it a few years, you want to try and do everything. You want to try and manage everyone. You want to be everyone's friend and everyone's counsellor and everyone's boss all at the same time. And you want to dip in and out, and you want everyone to need you, and you want everyone to think that you're the person that everything has to go through. But then as with time, you've got to park that ego, and you've got to realise, like you rightly say, if you want to go to that next level and the one above, you can't act like that.
How do you find the balance then between being available for everyone and being available for yourself and your goals? Because it's difficult to balance out. I've found that, and I think I'm getting better at it over the last 1-2 years, where we've still got open door policy. We have about 15 staff across our offices, but we've got open door policy. But at the same time, it's when I need to do something or I need to do some planning, I won't even sit in the office. I'll go to a cafe and start planning with the laptop. But how do you find that balance?
Something you said there's so true, because what I found was actually COVID done this. So before COVID, I used to be in the office every day. And when you're in the office every day, whether you like it or not, and I had an open door policy, they just come in and ask questions, don't they? Terry, what about this? Terry, what about this? Guess what happened last night? Did you watch this on TV? It's just, you can't get away from it, right? And you're almost too available, aren't you, when you're in the office?
Yeah.
So COVID forced us to obviously work from home. By the way, our mortgage and life insurance brokers, we doubled in size in COVID. Didn't shut one day. I worked more during COVID. I wasn't in lockdown. I was working constantly.
More life insurance than...
Yeah, because everyone was worried about dying. Yeah. But we'll park COVID. My views on COVID. We won't discuss that. But yeah, in terms of like distancing yourself a little bit, I think that's key. And it naturally happened to me just because of the office thing. But then when you realise that, like when I had this big sales team, we then set up team leaders and a sales trainer. So I got to a stage where they didn't ask me any questions. I didn't even do the training. I just used to do motivational Mondays and that was it. Whereas years and years ago, I was doing the motivational Mondays, I was doing the training. I was the person that they rang if they were with a client and they didn't know what to do. I was the person when they didn't understand a product. I was everybody. So, and I was managing the admin staff and the office manager and all of that. It was crazy. But you've got to bite the bullet. You've got to let go. You've got to park your ego, and you've just got to think, do you really want loads of hassle and loads of stress and you being sucked into all these conversations? If you remove your ego, the answer's normally no. So that if that is the case, then you need to remove yourself. Sometimes you just don't answer the phone when they ring you, as daft as that is. And you have a voicemail to say, if it's urgent, WhatsApp is, or if it's this, email this person.
I think what I've started to do is spend time a bit away from the office and also let them figure it out themselves. Like they're smart enough, they're recruited, and I've recruited them because they're smart enough to find the solutions to the problems that arise. And once you let them figure it out, they know they can do it. But sometimes when you're there, it's
easier
to
just
ask
put
the
you.
responsibility.
It's easier to ask, yeah. Great tip on this one. I don't know where I got this from actually, but I've done it for years, is having a how-to file. So the how-to file was every time I was in the office and somebody asked a question. So it might be, how do I input this bit of information into this software? So I said, right, so voice recorders, and because you've asked the question, voice recorders, and then I want you to write that question and the answer in the how-to file. So then tell them the answer, the voice recorder, and they put it in the how-to file. And this used to annoy them, you can imagine, right? You say, we put it in the how-to file. And then eventually with time, it's only hard at the start, but then with time, the start of then, when they ask a question, you say, well, have you checked the how-to file? They say, well, I don't think it's in there. Well, have you checked? So then I used to go and check, well, if it's not in there, right, I'll tell you this one once, record it, you put it in because you asked the question, and then after that, it's in there. And then with time, they start to then stop asking the questions because then they look in the how-to files first, and they only ask a question when it's not in there. But then what you've also got is you've got a system and a process for anybody buying that business, because then everything is in the how-to file.
I've started doing that as well.
It's great, honestly.
I just made them write it down. I said, okay, you don't know, I'll train you, then write it down step by step. And it makes
put it in a flow chart, some sort of flow chart system or something, it's documented. And then it's a proper business because then you're less needed. And that is a strange feeling as well, mind, when you're less needed and you almost make yourself redundant a little bit. That's a bit of a strange feeling as well.
But also that means if you want to exit or you get an offer with a fully systemized business where the staff know what they're doing, you get a much better offer. Yeah,
it's worth more, 100%. And people don't realize this, that most people don't even have businesses. They think they have a business and they say they're a CEO or an entrepreneur on LinkedIn and all of that. But in reality, they don't even have a business. They've got a really, sometimes high paid, sometimes not, high stress, drains a lot of your energy job. And they work for a knobhead who is themselves. That's literally what these people have got. And you say to them, like, someone said to me years ago, so if you had 6 months off work, no phone, would your business still run and grow? And I said, definitely not. 2 weeks, it would probably go down the pan. And but it wouldn't even run, never mind grow. But in order to get your business to a stage where it runs and grows, if you had 6 months off, but you can't be in the office every day. You can't be answering questions or email. You've got to have staff and systems in place so it all runs without you. And that's definitely difficult and it definitely takes time. It took me probably 2 years to get that business to that stage from thinking about it like
consciously
that.
Making
Yeah, consciously, yeah. And it was probably, honestly, it was a good 2 years. But then once it's done, it's done.
I started doing that I think it was during COVID that I saw, I'm taking myself out bit by bit, and then COVID was what, March 2020.
Yeah.
And then in October 21, I went Mauritius. And what happened was, while I was on the boat on the Indian Ocean, my phone fell inside the water. So I had no access for 2 weeks. I had an iPad, but I sent one email. I said, my phone's in the water, don't contact me.
Yeah.
And I sent it to my accountant at the time.
Yeah.
And she sent it to everyone.
Wow.
So 2 weeks, that business was running. I thought, I've done it.
Yeah.
So now I can, I can be here for 2-3 days. I can go Saudi like I am in a couple of weeks, and
not have to worry.
Don't have to worry. There'll still be questions. My VA will send me an update every day, and I can look at it and answer it. But it takes much less of my time, which I think is a game changer. Which means we can focus on the most profitable tasks.
Strategy, bringing in the money, the most profitable stuff, definitely. And honestly, I know that anyone listening to that will think, that you're right, but it still doesn't mean that everyone does it. And honestly, the amount of people that can't do this is quite scary. Like, I coach quite a few business owners and property people, and a lot of them, they're in the business. They don't even know how to, or have never really worked on it, or the chances or the opportunities to work on it that they get is very, very slim, because the two in the business. And sometimes that's ego, sometimes it's knowledge, sometimes they're just caught up in this trap, aren't they? And they're firefighting constantly. But anybody at the top, or anybody at that relatively high level, has learned that that's what you have to do.
It's like the Alex Ferguson School of Management, because he's big on man management. And then, especially towards the end of his career, he used to delegate everything. And he used to have a room on top of the training ground where he's literally got the bird's eye view of what's going on.
Oh, is he really? I've meant to read his book. His book's meant to be amazing. Yeah. I've seen a couple of interviews with him, and he is mega, like, isn't he? Mega.
I think he used to do speeches at Harvard.
Oh, did he really? About I think that might have been one that I've watched. Is it on YouTube, that one?
I think so.
I've definitely watched something. Now that you said that, he's got a whiteboard behind him.
Yeah, I think so. It's like in a classroom.
Yeah. I think I've seen that one. Yeah. There you go.
What's your next plan? You sold the business. You've got a newborn.
Yeah.
What's your next plan? Are you planning to take it easy?
I did think that when I was during the sale process, I was like, I'll be retired, I can chill out and all of that. But I'm busier now. Honestly, I think I'm busier now than I was before that. So I've learned about myself during this reflection period and finding myself again and all of that. During that time, I've realised that I'd love being busy. And don't get us wrong, at any point, if I want to, I can just take as much time off as I want. Everything still runs to a degree. A little bit of, obviously, the coaching you can't do. If it's me I can't do that. But majority of what I'm involved in runs without me. I can take any time off that I want, whenever I want. And that's a good feeling. Although I have maybe 2-3 holidays a year, a couple of weekends away, have Christmas off. I don't work weekends. But I can have the time off, as much time off as whenever I want, really. So, although I don't always take it, I can do. So life is different in a way now to what it used to be. But I like to I've just learned about myself, I like to be busy. I like to create new things. I like to be forward thinking. Like this guy I've actually just took on, his position's going to be digital marketer, but it's using AI. So he's almost an AI person. And I've never took on, I don't know many people taking on AI people apart from Google and them, but this guy is shit hot with AI. I'm having to pay him well, but I want to be forward thinking, and I want to keep creating and growing everything. My content's going to ramp it up. So to answer your question, what am I planning now? It's very much certainly the new stuff that I'm involved in. We need to grow those businesses. The businesses that I've got, we're focusing on profit. And I just like to keep busy. I want to keep myself busy, happy, fit, and fulfilled. That's kind of what I'm about.
You've written how many books? 2 books?
2 books, yeah.
Why did you write them? Or what are they called?
So,
why did you write them?
So Be Aligned was the first one. That actually, I can't believe this. This won Business Book of the Year at the Paris, San Francisco, and Hollywood book festivals. I don't know how that happened, but there you go. Little plug there. So Be Aligned is about I came from a training session that I was doing, I mean Motivational Mondays actually. So she do training sessions with the staff. And it came about where we started talking about, I don't know where it came from, it just came out my head and out my mouth, about lions. So everyone's watched some sort of documentary or seen a clip of a lion chasing another animal, right? And killing a zebra or a wildebeest or whatever, right? So, I mean, I don't know much about lions, but my perception of lions is they wouldn't think, if they seen a zebra, they wouldn't think, not a day. Don't think I'm fast enough to get that zebra. It looks a bit too strong, that zebra, or it's a bit too muscly, that wildebeest. I don't think they'll think like that, right? Well, that's right or wrong, I don't know, but that's my perception. So living a life like a lion is where you have zero self-doubt in whatever that you are chasing. So whether it's a goal, whether it's, chatting up a partner, whether it's recruiting somebody, whatever it is, you shouldn't doubt yourself, because the only doubts that you really have are the ones that you put in your own head. And that's like living a life of a lion, doing what you want, when you want, on your terms, and not doubting your own ability or yourself. And then there's other analogies in the book, which is hyena. So hyenas are those animals that like cackle and laugh, don't they? So I got some stick online about this the other day because someone was educating us on hyenas. I don't really care about what hyenas are really like, but the analogy everyone understands, which is we've all got those people that laugh at us, right? The people that take the mick out of us or try and put us down, kill our dreams, squash our aspirations. We've all know people like that, whether that's an ex-partner, a friend, a family member, a colleague, someone on Facebook, a hater who comments on a hyena video. So we've all got them in our life, right? And even if you're a strong lion, if you've got 10 hyenas around you, they're probably going to win the fight, and they're going to bite you and do whatever, and they're going to kill the lion, kill your dreams. So you've got two options there. You can either keep the hyenas away from you and fight them off, and even if you've got one or two snapping at your heels, you'll still be able to fight them off. Or you get around a load more lions, so it doesn't matter if there's 100 hyenas, they can't attack you because you've got lions around you. And everyone gets those analogies, right? Everyone visualizes a lion, visualizes a hyena when I'm saying that. And the last analogy in the book is about sloths. So sloths are those creatures that crawl really slow along the trees like this, right? So we all know them in life as well, don't we? We know the sloths where they're really slow, they don't really achieve very much, they don't really do very much, they don't really get by and do anything massive in their life. They just get by, don't they? They just tick along. Try and talk to them about, have you ever talked to someone about your big goals and dreams about Dubai and Saudi and all these amazing things, and they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
How are you never going to do that? What do you mean? Nah, that'll never work. Like, that's a little bit like hyenas, but sloths are like, what is Saudi? What do you mean? How do you buy a buy-to-let? You know, them type people. And there's nothing against these type people. I'm not slagging them off. But we all know them, right? We definitely all came across them. So what you need to learn is don't hang around with sloths, because you'll just become a little bit slow. So you need to get rid of the sloths, get rid of the hyenas, and if you become a lion, you be a lion in your life, you'll generally achieve more in all aspects and live a more fulfilled, happy life.
You talk about the lion mindset a lot. Mm-hmm. So is that more about just chasing what you want and doing what you need to get there?
That's part of it, yeah, definitely. It's about when you look at a situation like a lion looks at a zebra or a wildebeest or whatever, a buffalo, when he looks at a situation, he's just not going to doubt himself. So if you look at your own situation, if you think there's a new business idea, a new concept, a new method, a lead generation tactic or whatever, just not doubting yourself in your own ability and giving it a try. The lion doesn't catch its prey every time, does it? No. Often it won't. It'll fail. It might not be fast enough, or it might escape, or whatever might happen. But it is about it's just about going for whatever it is that you want and stop doubting yourself, because we weren't born with any doubt. You didn't have doubt when you came out the womb, right? That has been developed over your habits, choices, behaviours, life, whatever's happened to you has got you to a stage of whether you've got huge self-belief or no self-belief. But you can change all of that. So that's what it's about. It's about things like working in a pride, working together with other lions, keeping away from the hyenas and the negative people in your life, and not being a little bit slow like the sloth. There's more to it in the book, and I talk about all my ways of getting rid of self-doubt and the way I look at situations and attack things. And there's another actually good big point of the book is certainly in my own understanding and when I speak to a lot of people, I get this impression that a lot of people think like you can't have everything. And what I mean by everything is you can't be a good parent and spend time with your missus or your partner and your kids. You can't keep fit and go to the gym and eat healthy, as well as earn good money, as well as have a business and buy property and have time off and have holidays and have a social life with your friends. People think you can't do all of it at once. They think like, well, I haven't got time to go to the gym because I need to be at work. Or I haven't got time to spend with my wife and kids because I'm too busy growing my business. Or, you know what I mean? They think it's like one or the other. And I don't know why people think this. Maybe it's a self-limiting belief. Maybe it's, I don't know where it came from, but it does seem to be quite commonly thought of that you can't do everything. But in reality, you can. You can keep fit and be a good partner and a good parent and be wealthy and have multiple businesses and buy property. You can. I do it. And there's loads of people that do more than me.
It's about prioritizing and having a structure.
Yeah. One of your first points. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And nothing was achieved, certainly nothing of any relevance or any sort of anything that's very big or very good. And nothing like that was achieved without intention. I think that's what people miss. People just think that they're going to fluke the way to the top or luckily get a big break. But nothing really big was done without intention.
And I think going back to lion mindset, lions, what they do is they would weigh up their prey. So they would sometimes be around their prey, and the prey would know they're there for a good few days, and then they'll look at the right time, and then they attack. The prey would be there. One will come this way, chase them down. One would come this way. One would come that way, and they'll get them in a stranglehold. They're not always successful, but most of the time, I'm guessing they are.
And that comes down to strategy and working with the right people. So you can link that to, I think why the book did so well in terms of sales and feedback was because everybody can relate to something like that, whether it was working as a team or working by yourself or not getting what you want or doubting yourself, or there's so many links to those animals, isn't there, that you can sort of relate to your own situation in your own life.
And if you look at it from like a wider perspective, the world needs each and every type of person. It needs entrepreneurs.
Definitely.
It needs a 9 to 5. It needs the welfare system needs people on benefits as well. That's just the way the system's created. It's the same with in the jungle. You need the lions. The lions need the prey. The prey need the grass.
It's a food chain. Yeah, exactly.
If you had a 16-year-old Terry sitting next to you today, what would you say to him?
So at 16, I was getting up to no good, so it would be stop taking drugs and drinking all the time and being an idiot. But honestly, someone asked me this on a podcast the other day. I wouldn't change that much if you look at my business career, because yes, I could say things like, I wish I was educated more or better in terms of property, or got a mentor earlier and all of these things. But would I still be who I am? Yes, I might be a better version of me, but I might be a worse version of me. You don't know. And I think you shouldn't really look back and try and change too much, because unless you're really unhappy about where you are in your current situation, then yeah. But if you're happy, which I am, I'm very happy, I'm very content, I've done really well. I'm definitely not content, and I definitely want more still. But I wouldn't really change much, because I like who I am. There's obviously loads of little stupid mistakes you make along the way, right? But nothing major that jumps out when you say that.
You mentioned about getting educated. I think when sometimes a person is just not book smart, or they don't want to be book smart, but when you're into businesses, you realize that I need to learn more, and then you're kind of learning on the job, and then doing a lot of self-development, like audio books or books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, because you did that a bit later on after you started.
What was your question, sorry?
No, just a comment.
Oh, so I thought you asked the question there. But yeah, no, to follow on from what you said there, definitely. I think one thing I've noticed about myself in this reflection time as well, in regards to self-development, is I am obsessed with self-development, but I don't want to change that. Like it keeps me sharp. And I also look at self-development in a slightly different way, because yes, I listen to podcasts, I listen to audio books, I read certainly if I don't listen to a podcast or an audio, but I do that pretty much every day. Even when I'm in the shower or I'm training, I'm in the car a lot. I do that type of self-development literally every day. Don't read every day. But I also look at self-development in a way of like, when I come across a situation that I'm in that I maybe don't like, or something that I don't know how to deal with, or I've never experienced before, or I've got a big goal that I'm a little bit unsure about how I get there, I'll ring people or contact people who have already done that. And that is a way of self-development for me, because I ask them questions, and I'm good at asking questions to get the info that I want. That's the same, isn't it? Or networking with people who are doing a lot more than you. That is the same thing. And I don't think people look at it like that. They look at networking as like, you know, it's something that they're told that they should do. But do you actually have an objective when you go in networking? Because you should do. And you should spot who you want to speak to and speak and ask them the questions, get the number, take them for a coffee afterwards.
Someone asked me, I think it was yesterday, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start a business? So 2 things: get pen, paper, coffee, write your ideas down. Number 2 is get on LinkedIn, message a whole load of business owners, ask them for a 15-minute call and ask them what you want.
Definitely.
Because that networking is so important for, yes, personal development, and along with building your client base and everything, but personal development is so key, because you know something I don't, I know something you don't, and you have information that I might want. And it's just like you said, asking the right questions at the right time.
And you can learn from other people's mistakes, but there's also, I do think, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who'll watch this podcast and they'll watch other podcasts and they'll listen to books and they'll read books and they don't do anything with it. Now that's a different thing in itself. I think some people are a little bit addicted to this type stuff, but they don't do anything with it. Yeah, it's literally pointless listening to this if you're not going to listen to something that you said or I've said and implement it or learn from it or be inspired by. It is pointless. It's pointless, isn't it? It's a waste of time. And I do think there's a lot of people out there that are just, they like listening to it, but they do nothing with it.
Yeah.
Which is just, it defeats the object.
You have to implement it.
Yeah, I'm quite a logical person, me. If I'm going to listen to a podcast, I'm listening to it for a reason. I want to get something from it. And if I'll only listen to someone who I like or I look up to or respect, or who's achieved more than me or has done something I want to do, or I like the way they do stuff. Yes, you can watch stuff for humor and stuff, you know, comedians and all that, but self-development, I want to get something from it. So because I look at that from a logical point of view, I want to get something from it. When I learn something new, I implement it straight away. Because the longer you leave something, the less likely you are to do it at all. It's procrastinating just basically delays you even doing it. And I think there's a stat, it's something like 3 or 4 days with an idea. You've had an idea for 3 or 4 days, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's pretty much 90% you're not going to do anything with it. So a big key to it is, if you learn something in this podcast or any other podcast, do it like today. Don't wait until tomorrow or next week, because it never comes.
Get your focus right and do it.
Yeah, write it down. I'm a big believer in writing down. I know you've mentioned that a couple of times. I'm a big believer in that. That's in the Be Line book, about my morning habits. And I have slipped off a little bit, I'm not going to lie. I have slipped off with me writing since the baby, but I still write my goals down most mornings. I used to be religious, like 4, 5 A4 pages every day. Because something magic happens when you write it, doesn't it? And you write, it reinforces, doesn't it? I'm a big believer in that.
Just a quick fire round before we finish. Favorite food?
Favorite fruit?
Food.
Oh, food. Steak.
Nice. You need to go to Africa. So you get the steak and you get to see the lions.
Yeah, definitely.
Favorite
I don't know if I wouldn't eat a lion, just to point that out.
Yeah, steak over or beef, basically.
Cow or something, yeah, it's fine.
Favorite holiday destination?
Ooh, Ibiza.
Favorite book?
Be a Line. No, it's got to be... well, Rich Dad Poor Dad was probably there up until just literally Alex Hormozy. So I've read $100 million offers, and his new ones just came out, and I'm reading it right now, and it's nearly my fate. Honestly, that guy is something else. I don't know if you've read it or you've listened to his content. Oh my days, I was
thinking of him right now when you were talking about podcasts.
Mate, he is unreal. So that might be Pip and Rich Dad Poor Dad. It might be.
If you had to have a superpower, what would it be?
see it in the future.
I think that'll be a bit. I don't know.
I wouldn't use it for personal things. I would use it purely for business.
So you can predict.
Bought Bitcoin at the right time, investing in certain stocks at the right time. You'd be a billionaire, be the richest person in the world.
Favorite day of the week?
Used to actually, well, no, it didn't used to be Mondays. I was going to say, Mondays used to be right up there when I used to do my motivation stuff. But Fridays.
I can't do the thing now where I point at the back and say, right now, when we do the podcast in my office, we have the I Love Monday written at the back.
I do.
So I normally will point at the back, so that's
Yeah.
Anyway, Terry, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I know you've got a busy schedule ahead. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.